Hello to everybody. Thank you for this great opportunity. It's a pleasure to work with this panel. First of all, I want to do some little disambiguation because the crisis management is sometimes abused both in the governmental and the business environment as a term. In the past, it was the corporate term for crisis communication, which today is a part of the general process of crisis management on both governmental and private corporate floor. Today, the art of crisis management addresses emergencies when they escalate and bypass the responding capability of the subject acting on the emergency itself. So basically, we try to manage and to address emergency when they are so big and they overcome the capability of the responding agency or the responding government or the responding corporation to address the emergency itself. Actually, we have two main drivers for the change because this panel is about change management. The medical one, which is not one of the topics we will talk about, and the social one, which is already deeply talked by the other panelists in the previous day. The social one is deeply connected to the end status of the dependent economical crisis, which is already unfolding here in Italy, and we expect a worsening in September, even with in-depth geopolitical impacts and on geopolitical relation of Italy itself. The effects of COVID-19 on the crisis management domain are both long-term and short-term, and they overdrive the normal emergency management cycle. The long-term effects evaluation are dependent in the deep evaluation of the whole COVID experience, especially answering to big questions which are arising in our group of crisis managers. Did we perform well, or did we perform bad in this situation at the last? And how to parameter our global performance? Because the lack of preparedness, despite the warning signs and the early warnings available, is tangible. Either if these signs are clues of narrative warfare or propaganda, but the fact is they are already available from years. The other fact we are trying to address is about policing, because at the end of the Cold War, we sent in the past our civil defense approach. So we focused on the response. We have a lot of CBRNe team, a lot of people in high protection suite, a lot of specialized hospital and asset. But we throw to the trash the whole work made in the past during the big fear of the atomic bomb, where all the citizens were trying to somewhere to protect at some degree themselves from nuclear fallout, to have some food sheltered in their house and so on. We threw everything in the garbage bin, and we lost that focus. And it has a real big impact because the general population is not ready for this kind of challenge. So we had a very specialized approach to single cases, but we lose our collective perception and the situation awareness as the situation goes by. One of the examples I have a thing to give for address this problem is that a lot of high-level government and business high-level official CIO and even some head of nation, like it was in UK, was stricken by the virus. Underlying our loss of capability to protect, for example, our chain of command, which was one of the critical points of the civil defense approach compared to the civil protection approach. The second question, which is arise during the crisis, during the unfolding of the crisis. Sorry, I'm a bit emotional by this participating to this panel. On the long term, we have to address in the science of crisis management is we have tested our resilience as a global society, but it was what we want. So we really wanted to address our resiliences as a society, because the lack of a common strategy and has underlined one other problem. which is the not responding at the same level as given a different speed in different nations to the widespreading of the virus. So the scenario we are preparing to face has some closed country, some country open, some business functioning, some business completely collapsed. And I think this different speed is subsequent the lack of a common strategy worldwide to address the virus problem. The other things which has arisen in this problem is that the resorting of the government to extensive lockdowns, which are an effective measure to contain the virus, but is the most brutal and with the most dire impact on the economy and society as a response. Upon the tactical level, we can speak for the short-time effects without any hesitation. So on the short-time adaptation, which is consequence of the experience we are having, something like a lesson learned, we can implement some action now in the crisis management field, both at the government and the business level. For example, we can from now draw a baseline which is common for future response for every threat like the COVID-19 without any hesitation. We are lacking now worldwide the stockpiling, for example, of PPE, which can be a government or even a business decision, because PPE are in common use every day in health and safety environment. So having a stockpiling policy, both government and both business, can mitigate the first initial impact of a new wave of COVID or similar pandemic situation. For example, we can implement a threat level reporting system like that one which is in place for terrorism, like a colored warning system where the population can see which current level of threat from biological risk is spread in the country and adopt the correct strategy when sent for warehouse. Other baseline activity, which is in dire need everywhere worldwide, there is a basic training curriculum for responding agencies, yes, healthcare, fire and rescue, civil protection, but especially a basic training curriculum for health and safety officer, because business continuity is the other phase of pandemic response, which is well addressed in Italy, but again, we have no response everywhere in the world at the same level. So we need a clear policy worldwide saying that the minimum standard for training for everyone in business continuity is using the gloves, yes or no, using this kind of disinfectant, which is usually thrown up from medical agencies like CDC and the CDC, but is related for the special situation and not the new norm. Other baseline action which can be implemented from now is, for example, adopting everywhere a business continuity strategy for every business, not for the big players. Business continuity strategy can vary from rendering mandatory, for example, for every company as a percentage of their income available always as an emergency fund, implementing the same strategy for homes. So every family can store up 1 month of food as an example of a mandatory resiliency strategy. The other things which can help to ease the current dire situation is a topic of discussion in every morning briefing of every CIO as a mandatory action related to business continuity strategy. Other things which can leverage easily the situation is to relocate permanent resources to biosecurity innovation, because now we are looking for new technology about biosecurity. We are working with technology which are adopted in the 80 of the previous century, respiratory, mask, PPI, and so on. Even the testing process is a technology coming from the 80s of the last centuries. At last, a better crisis communication policy has to be adopted, both from the governments itself and from big companies, because it's a clear fact which the big confusion, the contradictory news coming from the scientific community has a deep negative impact on the business outcome on of the companies. All these actions are consequence, and it is one main concern that we have as a crisis manager, is that this is not a black swan event as like big measure in the communication environment as called it. It is a gray swan event, because this virus is as small transmissibility, small lethality, and an high focused lethality, which is not a high threat like it can be, for example, Ebola or other level 4 biological agents. So again, we have to face the future, the new norm, as it's called by this panel, with a new approach. Which involve pandemic preparedness, even at the governmental level, and is a normal consequence of the actual situation. But a lot of work has to do from the business side. And the business side has to face a new way of thinking its travel, its emergency procedure, its funding process, and even its health and safety environment every day. Because having preparedness has, of course, a smaller impact than implementing emergency action. Also, we have to rethink about the common approach which we had in Italy. In Italy, as by your question, we had the very first case in Europe, in Rome, which was following some Chinese tourists, as the media stated, and we had other silent cases undergoing in the north. And we focused especially at start in addressing the situation, closing a small zone, which we call it red zone. The red zone approach is still a good way of managing the emergency itself, while the emergency is known in that situation. So what I mean, we closed, for example, Castel Pusterlengo, which is a small town of about 3,000 people, with a lot of effectiveness. But due to the nature of the virus, the same virus, 30 kilometers north, was widespreading. Is that the correct approach, both from the crisis management and for the business? It can be a good approach with different kind of virus. And we had the same situation now undergoing in China, which has very quietly, at this time we have speaking, escalating its new lockdown from several buildings in its capital city up to entire quarter and quarter zones. Thank you. I'm open, of course, for questions. Sorry, I'm a bit emotional from the last intervention.